Hello, online pipe community. It's Ethan, Parsimonious Piper. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today?
My name is Jaime Paul Lamb. That's my full name, my first, middle, and last. I have a YouTube channel called Smoking in My Car.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, as much or as little as you'd like, where you live, what you do.
Well, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I was born on the East Coast in Connecticut. I've moved around quite a bit: Minneapolis, Houston, Los Angeles, Vegas, Phoenix a couple of times. So got a good kind of look at the country over the years from various places, and wound up here. We just keep coming back to the desert. I don't know what it is, like you and I had talked about in text somewhere, but keep coming back here. And finally, we just set down roots about 8, 9 years ago, and just in Arizona. I've been in the wholesale electrical supply industry for about 20 years. I'm a commercial lighting project manager. So let's say there's some building going up, there's a number of fixtures, a number of exit signs, emergencies, whatever, all of the lighting. I keep track of the orders and the comings and goings of all that material. So been doing that for about the last 10 years, but in the industry for twice that. My wife's a veterinarian. She's a avian boarded specialty veterinarian. Like, she works primarily with birds, and she does wildlife. She does pet companion birds. She's worked on eagles and California condors and all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
But yeah, so she's got an interesting gig. She's very fulfilled. And yeah, we just, we got a pretty great life together. I'm happy about it.
It sounds great. So you guys moved to Phoenix just a couple of years after we left.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we moved out here to North Carolina back in 11. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
just a couple of years overlap. Well, let's dive in. How long have you been smoking a pipe?
About the last 6 months. So 6 months ago, I got serious about the hobby. I'm one of the guys who's been struggling with cigarettes, for my entire adult life. And I put it down for like 5 years one time, and then a year here and there and everything. But this last time I did Chantix to get off of it, off of the nicotine addiction, basically. And then I had 2 months where I didn't smoke anything at all to make sure it was, I was good and clean, basically. No dependency on nicotine. And then I decided to have kind of put the pipe in that place. So when the inevitable comes up and I'm in a social situation and I really want to smoke, or if I'm drinking, or if I'm getting nostalgic or I'm getting contemplative, I wanted to have a mechanism in place, because the reason why I smoked cigarettes, I did a lot of soul searching about this. The reason why I did it was for those reasons: nostalgia, social reasons, meditative contemplation, just disconnecting from whatever's going on, go someplace and smoke a cigarette behind the side of the building or whatever. So I wanted to so that's how it started. I wanted to have that mechanism in place. I bought a Dr. Graybo about 20 years ago when I first tried this, but I don't think there was a YouTube at that time. And I just bought the cheapest bag of some sort of codger arrow, and burnt the hell out of my tongue and had a bad time and hated it. And that kind of ended that first attempt at pipe smoking. I had I think it was a Duke, Graybo, one of the Dukes, like a Golden Duke or Grand Duke.
Yeah.
And then, so then this time I decided to do some research before I jumped into it. Because again, I just knew I wanted to have this mechanism in place, not as a substitute for cigarettes, but as because I don't, even now I don't have a nicotine addiction. I don't really get nic hits. I don't smoke a lot of nic heavy um, tobaccos. I'm not chasing a nicotine habit. So, and I'm positive of that because I put down the pipe for, a day here and there, or even a couple of days. And it's not like I'm jonesing, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I started this time with another Graybo. I got a Graybo Omega about 6 months ago. And I was quick. Well, I think I did half and half was my first pouch. Yeah. So 6 months. That's the long way of saying I've been smoking for 6 months.
So what did you smoke this time around when you started back up again?
I started with something called Mike's Blend at the local brick and mortar here. It's an Arrow. I think it's not like a berry Arrow. It's like vanilla or nougat or something like that. I got about an ounce of that, and then I got a pouch of half and half. So I ended up not really liking the Arrow, and I smoked through the half and half. And then what did I get into? I think I did like Haunted Bookshop when I started placing orders online. Autumn Evening, isn't that the name of that one? C&D Autumn Evening.
Yep.
And,
That's maple and something.
mm-hmm. and then and then Proper English. Peter Stokkeby Proper English, which I really like. And yeah, then it's just like kind of the natural progression, but in miniature. Like I had, instead of having 6 months of Arrows, then 2 years of Englishes, and then on to Virginias. I kind of did that in microcosmically, like I did a couple days of Arrows, and then maybe a couple months of Englishes. Now it's like I'd say half and half Englishes and vapor or Virginias or Virginia pluses at this time.
Yeah, I think a lot of us started out with Arrows, and that almost killed me. That just about ended my pipe smoking journey before it began. Was all of that hot goopy mess.
Right. Yeah, hot wet smokes pretty awful. That's what turned me off that first time 20 years ago.
So you have a good brick and mortar there. I was not smoking a pipe 10 years ago when we lived in Phoenix, and so I'm not familiar with I know there's one pipe shop in North Mesa, Northwest Mesa, close to Tempe, that my son took me to.
Like a stag or like mom and pop kind of place.
No, it was mom and pop, but it had a nice smoking lounge, and so I don't remember the name of it.
Right. Yeah, there's a good one here, family owned. It's about a mile from my house, very close, and they've got about 75 jars of bulk. They've got one rack of tins, not a whole bunch of tins. They got some pouches behind the counter. They've got a pretty good selection of pipes too. I could take a picture and post it at some point. But
yeah, take us on a tour.
Yeah, it's called the Cigar Inn.
Not familiar with that one. Now, of course, it's been a couple of years. My son and his wife moved out back from Arizona to here a couple of years ago, and I haven't been to a pipe shop out there since then. Well, folks, Jamie just had a technical difficulty. His phone overheated, so he had to run inside to reconnect. I think we were just wrapping up talking about brick and mortars, and I was bemoaning the fact that I don't have one within about an hour of me, so I don't get to visit terribly often. My next question for you was going to be, how did you find the YTPC? What got you into watching videos, first of all?
Okay, so yeah, while I was researching the pipe hobby because I knew I wanted to, like I was saying, have something in place for when I do want that sort of meditative, contemplative time, when I do feel sort of nostalgic about smoking in general, because despite the fact that they were cigarettes, it was still something enjoyable that I would do. Not nearly as enjoyable as I found the pipe hobby, but it was still something like I didn't hate smoking cigarettes, you know. I hated the sort of drug taking aspect of it because cigarette smoking for me very quickly devolved into just, you know, basically paying a bill, you know, like for a nicotine addiction, you know. So it just devolved into that. So at some point it became sort of joyless, but initially just again that whole breaking away, smoking a cigarette, or you know, now breaking away, having a pipe and not, you know, like disengaging from whatever's going on and having some nice time to just uh, sort of reflect and consolidate my thoughts and think about my projects, you know. That's what's really great about it. So your question was yes, the YTPC. So in doing research for the you know, about the hobby, so I can um, get that in motion for myself, I of course went first to, you know, online resources. I joined a pipe message board. I was watching Mutton Chops videos. I was watching Bradley Stuff and Things. I was watching um, Kevin Hobbiton Piper. I've come across your videos before and various others in the YTPC, like Paladin Piper. I remember seeing him before I, you know, started reaching out to people. There were a few that I remember seeing. So I'd say but it was actually before I got another Dr. Graybo and started, you know, started getting into the hobby. This was before I even smoked a pipe this time, you know, that I was watching the videos because I didn't want to start out on the wrong foot like I had 20 years ago, you know, not knowing how to pack it, not knowing how to light it, having a bad experience, and that taints my whole thing going forward, you know.
Well, I know
So
Mutton Chop was a gateway for a lot of us. His instructional videos, um, he just had a friendly, easygoing way of breaking it down. Now, not everybody agrees with everything that he ever put in those videos, but it helped an awful lot of us get through the beginner phase to where we could really enjoy the pipe and not fight it all the time.
yeah,
He
and the
he's fantastic.
Yeah, and the good thing about him is he's like a pleasure to listen to. You could just
Hmm.
put that on, whether you're into pipe smoking at all. I mean, I think you could put that on and just like the way people watch Bob Ross. You know, you don't have to be doing his painting tutorial stuff to get what Bob Ross is about. Bob
Hmm.
Ross is a relaxed cat who is, you know, has that demeanor and everything, and just like really makes you feel relaxed, you know. And what is pipe smoking if it's not, you know, um, sort of a relaxation accoutrement? You know, it's
Hmm.
like they go hand in hand. So, and to have the sort of um, personality that Mutton Chop appears to have, I don't know. It's just a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I'm one of those who, um, despite his sometimes cheesiness, I really do enjoy the guy. He's absolutely. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah. Kevin has that as well. Kevin Hobbiton Piper. He has that series Smoke With Me.
Hmm.
If I don't know if you've seen those, but it's you know, where he's just talking about whatever. He's another one that I could just sit there and listen to, you know.
Yeah, nice guy, very much
Yeah.
so.
I haven't interacted with him yet, but he's probably a busy guy. You know, he's got a bazillion subscribers. You know, he probably gets a lot of messages. I don't want to bug him, you know.
Now, what what got you interested then in coming across to the presenter side of things?
That's a good question. So it was because, all right, after watching all the aforementioned people we were just talking about, and then getting into the hobby and finding that it's not a cigarette replacement, that it's its own distinct animal with its own sort of atmosphere about it. And after really getting into the hobby, um, I felt so grateful for the content that I watched, that that it had really helped me ease into the hobby in a way where I don't think I had a bad day. I'm not sure. I don't think I've gotten tongue bite twice. One time I know I did. It was early on, and it was on some goopy arrow, but I don't think I've gotten it again. And that's even like puffing pretty hard on Virginias and things like that. Maybe I don't have the tongue for it, but because of that acclamation that I had through YTPC videos, and how grateful I was, I figured it would almost be selfish if I didn't contribute to that body of work, So it's my kind of way of giving back to that community. If I could have some kind of meaningful content that might be helpful to somebody else. But like I said, I think in my first video, I really don't want to do tutorials or reviews. I kind of like the matches style of, stream of consciousness or storytelling or things like that. So without copying like that matches story time thing, I think everybody just as a person has their own unique presentation, their own unique personality. So I'm just trying to be authentically me while giving back to that community, hopefully in some meaningful capacity.
Well, you're off to a good start. You are. I know there are a bunch of us who really enjoy watching your videos and look forward to seeing them come out pretty regularly here.
Many thanks.
Now,
Many thanks.
Anybody who has been with us from the beginning of the video will notice probably the answer to my next question. Where'd you get your channel name?
Oh, well, yeah, it's just from smoking in my car. It was the first thing I thought about because, I do probably 90% of my smoking in that car. I pack a bowl before going to work. I smoke that, on my way in. I'll usually tamp it out and leave it there, pick it up again at lunch. And then for the ride home, I usually pack another bowl. And then I might, at that point, I might just sit and finish it in the car while I'm in the driveway. And then usually I'll have a bowl at night after dinner. So I'm kind of a 3 bowl a day guy, but most of that is in my car. Yeah.
Managed to inhale a little bit there. One of the reasons I could never smoke cigarettes, I think I'm going to die every time I get the tiniest bit of smoke in my lungs.
Yeah.
Just about did it there.
And the car, you have to do that in Phoenix because it's so hot. It's like you want to be able to put the air on, and plus it's nice still air in your car. If you're going to work on like blowing smoke rings or something like that, there's no better place than smoking in your car. And I like to see the smoke, and I don't know, I think it's a pleasure to sit in this space, where you're already kind of isolated and you're already in that zoned out kind of meditative place that the car is.
Yeah.
Just adds to it, I think.
I can see that. For me, for years, that was the motorcycle, but it's hard to smoke a pipe on a bike.
Yeah, I'll bet, even with a wind cap.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would work, but no, I hadn't really thought about it that way. But yeah, when you're in your car, you're alone with your thoughts, and it would be a natural way to enhance your contemplation.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I love smoking in my car, so I figured that was the quickest grab for a channel name.
You've mentioned Dr. Grabose a couple of times. What In the few months that you've been at this again, have you started gravitating toward or really liking any particular brand or carvers yet?
I haven't gotten any super artistic hand carved work per se. I've gotten um first that Graybo, that Dr. Graybo Omega, which is like a bent billiard.
Hmm.
Um, and then my first nice pipe was this one, this Peterson XL 315, which is it's a system pipe, and it's got the extra large chamber and the calabash bowl shape that I like. And then I got interested in Rhodesian shapes because I do a lot of this. I do a lot of overhand stoking
Yeah.
like this. And because I do that, the Rhodesian and certain calabash shapes I've really come to enjoy because ergonomically it's just a nice shape for me due to the
Hmm.
way that I stoke. And so I ended up branching out into a few more Petersons, a nice Mastro de Paya or Paja um, pipe that's one of my favorites, that one. And then I've got a Rattray's, what's a Monarch. So it's the one with the sort of marbled honey colored stem. It's a
Hmm.
lighter stain, Rhodesian bowl bent. So those are kind of my specs: is Rhodesian bowl shape, bent pipe, and preferably a fishtail. But I'll deal with a P lip if I have.
Yeah, I have not smoked an actual P lip yet. I've got a couple of old 1950s pipes that were imitation Petersons, and had a P lip style bit. Um, Not really a fan. I,
Right? Yeah.
I
It dries out my mouth.
well,
It,
instead of getting a hot spot on my tongue, I get a hot spot on the roof of my mouth. That's not any better.
yeah, exactly.
It
Yeah,
just changes the location of the discomfort for me.
for sure. I'd like to get those couple of stems that I have that have a P-lip button on it. I'd like to get those reworked at some point. I did reach out to somebody and they gave me a contact. I forget the guy's name, but they gave me a contact for an aftermarket stem for a couple of these Petersons with P-lip I have.
Yeah, the only guy that I've dealt with stems is Tim West, and he is very good. But there are a number of guys out there who do aftermarket custom type replacement stems.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I'd like to look into that. Just because they would be even, I like those pipes as it is. Like I've got the Baskerville from the Sherlock Holmes series,
yeah.
and that's a nice pipe. I really love it. Feels great and it smokes very well, but it would be just a little bit better if it had a fishtail.
So you like that full deep bend
Oh yeah,
on
yeah,
those?
yeah. This is not far from that bend. It's not
Yeah.
quite as extreme as the Baskerville, but and then I've got another calabash, not quite as extreme as well, but it's a Peterson Aaron calabash.
Yeah.
I want to get like the next shapes I'm looking into is perhaps like I really like that Dunhill big meerschaum calabash that they have, but the Brebbia Umpal. Brebbia has an Umpal that has a wind cap, a briar wind cap on a chain. You ever see
Huh.
that one?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so right where the stem hooks up to the shank, there's like a collar there. And from that collar, there's a chain that leads to the top of a briar cap that you put on the as a wind cap or to
Huh.
seal it. It's a really beautiful pipe. The only thing I don't like about it is it's got a sandblast finish, and I prefer smooth.
Mm. Yeah, I do too because I'm a little bit of a grain nut. I
Yeah,
I love bird's eye in particular. Um,
right.
but a well blasted pipe can be pretty, and the texture is always nice. But yeah, I'm like you. I like to see the grain more clearly.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, I prefer that, but I will look into, like for instance, I do want to get a birth year Dunhill at some
Hmm.
point, 71 Dunhill. So I've been looking and I'm not finding anything smooth. I'm finding, rusticated or blast or shell. What's that shell?
Shellbriar.
Shell briar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's another designation of the quality of their briar. Some brands use terms like Brouillet, and other other designations for what their briar quality was, and that's one of theirs. A Dunhill shell is one
Yeah.
of their high quality. Well, their Dunhills are all known for being high quality, but it's one of their better um, levels, from what I understand.
Yeah, I've seen Brouillet. Like for instance, that Dunhill Calabash with um, I think it's got a meerschaum cap or Corona on it, maybe, but or the whole bowl might be. I'm not sure, but it's got Brouillet Briar, right? Is that the way to say that? Brouillet Briar.
That's how one of my French coworkers said it, so that's how I say it. It may be anglicized to Gruyere. I don't know,
Right.
but I was curious. Outside of pipe smoking, then what are some of your other interests and hobbies?
So I've been a Freemason for 12 years, and that takes up a lot of my time. I'm very active in that. I've also got I've got a website, jamiepaullamb.com. So it's my name.com. And it's for, I do astrology, but not hippie, new age astrology. I'm, I'm definitely interested in Hellenistic and Perso-Arabic astrology. So we're talking about ancient
Right.
astrology. I've done a lot of work in that area all the way through the Renaissance, actually, but nothing beyond that. I like Hellenistic through Renaissance astrological traditions. I like the history and I like the theory of it. So I do on the side. I have a day job, but on the side for fun, I do sort of period astrological work uh, for you know clients or whatever, and I work up their chart and I use those ancient techniques to delineate their chart. So there's none of this, oh, you're a Scorpio and you must like Aquariuses, or there's none of that kind of hippie, fruity, new age stuff about it. It's actually a pretty complex and rich tradition.
Now that's something you should share with us sometime. That does sound interesting, because most of us only think of astrology along with sham palm readers and things like that. You know
Right.
that's the association that we have with it. We very rarely associate anyone with even a minimal amount of intelligence or honesty. So that would be would definitely be interesting to me. Um,
Yeah. What
to
I
see some of
like
that.
about it is that it's sort of encouched in a worldview, though. So that pre-enlightenment worldview, which kind of posited an animated cosmos. They simply believed that there was a great chain of being coming down from deity, from God, or the primum mobile, or the first moved. There were sort of expressions coming down through the choirs of angels and through the seven planetary spheres and down into the sublunary sphere below the moon where we are. And everything had a natural rulership, even tobacco. Tobacco is ruled by Mars. The sphere of Mars rules tobacco in this ancient worldview. So colors like black is ruled by Saturn. So you might say Latakia has a sub rulership by Saturn, and it's dark and smoky, and these are qualities associated with Saturn. So
Hmm.
Orientals, like particularly, well, Cyprian Latakia and Cyprian Orientals and things. Cyprus is it's ruled by Venus. She was the Cyprian, remember? So so there's all of these planetary, zodiacal, and stellar kind of correspondences and attributions that are in that pre-enlightenment or pre-enlightenment worldview. I don't want to necessarily get into this, but I'm a kind of staunch critic of the Enlightenment. I think the project, while there were a lot of good things, it was we disenchanted the world. We became disenchanted. We sort of fell from grace with the Enlightenment. So I've got, on one hand, kind of a beef with the Enlightenment project. But
You're not the only one. I'm absolutely positive. I haven't thought of it in that regard, but I can see that argument. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of when the cosmos became something that's dead matter that is merely measurable, without its own sense of meaning and purpose, devoid of the anima, devoid of its soul. So yeah, it's tragic, really, if you think about it, like, and the ramifications of that we're feeling today, positivistic sort of materialistic sciences, where if it's not, weights and measures, then it doesn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's part of, so the astrology for me is again encouched in this worldview that is much broader than that. So yeah. I try to, as a Christian and as I'm a Greek Orthodox Christian, and to me that the choirs of angels and this pseudo-Dionysian hierarchy of angels, these are all things that I would like to retain in my worldview. It's almost in the sort of Nietzschean sense, God doesn't exist in this post-enlightenment worldview. There's no room for God. He said God is dead. Remember? So I think he was.
There are an awful lot of folks that agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's been a positive change in culture, regardless of, and it has been interesting. I've read some honest atheists who have said they don't believe in God, but the belief in God was better for culture than the death of God. So interesting discussions and debates can go on around that. But yeah, that would be an interesting series for you to do to teach us a little bit about that.
Sure. What's been interesting was Greg Tunnel Take.
Mm-hmm.
He had a sort of a one of his videos where he said, about talking about how his opinions, his beliefs, and things like that, and how he's pretty open about who he is, and he had a critique about how guarded and sort of sheepish we could be in the public sphere,
and Greg is the opposite of that. Exactly. He's not sheepish in the slightest.
Right. So I think that's something that's pretty unique about the YTPC, is that you do have a lot of people who are authentic, like SoCal Piper, Israel, he's not hiding that he's a Christian, and you could be a Muslim, you could be a Jew, you could be a Hindi, whatever. I mean, I think that I think isn't Yusuf, he's probably Muslim, right?
I have no idea. Yusuf is actually a common Christian name in South and Southeast Africa. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, you're right. The big thing is in this community, it doesn't matter. Right. I mean, it really doesn't.
It feels like we're on an affinity group around pipe smoking, which is, and then everything else is just kind of those individual personalities kind of orbiting this central project to enjoy the pipe smoke.
Yeah. Well, and riffing off of Tunnel's video, everybody's got opinions, and we're better off sharing them, even when we disagree, than we are just hiding everything and
Right.
never bouncing different ideas off of each other. Um,
Yeah.
which makes me leads me to another question. What about the YTPC do you like the most? What kind of keeps you here?
I kind of like, well, first, I guess, what I came here for, what I initially was attracted to the YTPC for was the practical information, the theory, the technique, these sort of things that I wanted to get a handle on. What I stick around for are these sort of disparate personalities, all somehow being able to, it's really old school because this is like the world was 10, 12 years ago. If you remember, something happened. I'm not sure what. It felt like it was about 10, 12 years ago, but it's almost like a switch went off, and now nobody can, talk about anything, or, I'm not sure if I'm just seeing the world that way or if it's an objective reality. But
Well, I don't know about objective because that term in and of itself, it is difficult to achieve, but
yeah,
I certainly perceive it that way. In a couple of videos, I've talked about the YTPC as sort of a barbershop. As a kid and a young adult, I went to barbershops where the guys would argue politics and religion and sports and everything else, and discussions got heated. And you know what? The very next Saturday, the same guys were back together because they were friends. And
yeah,
and you can have your disagreements, and the YTPC should be a place like that where we can have our differences and even discuss our differences, and
yeah.
still be friends.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. So that's refreshing. So that's why I stay. I came here for theory and technique and technical support, but I stay because it really is a refreshingly old school kind of group, like for the reasons we just said. It's nice to be able to um, argue in the classic sense,
Mm-hmm.
like to sort of po- make propositions and then defend them, to persuade.
Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, it's refreshing. It's because the world just simply isn't like that anymore.
Yeah, there's a big difference between, when I was in high school, I was on the debate team, and one of the things you learn is to argue both sides of anything, and there's a world of difference between fighting over something and having an honest discussion or debate about it. We have gotten to a point where we can't seem to disagree without animosity, and
Right.
that's a sad thing. It's a very sad thing.
Yeah, it seems like, how in rhetoric classically they would have um logos, ethos, and pathos, and these would be in equal measure, and the rhetorician would use, like Cicero or somebody, the rhetorician would use these in forming and composing his arguments and his
Mhm.
defenses. um, but it seems like pathos has run wild. It's just out of proportion, this pathos element where it's just frothy emotional appeal seems to be all that there is. I mean, all you have to do is start crying about something, and then automatically the other person's wrong.
Right.
You know?
You somehow get credibility because of sympathy instead of facts and logic and reason. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All you have to do is be offended and say that hurt my feelings. Uh, then,
Ask Greg Tunnel what he thinks about your feelings.
yeah. Yeah. So it's nice to see this sort of really a return to something that, has been lost.
All right. Winding down. I have two last questions for you. One is a two-parter. What are the best and worst things about where you live? And if you were a tour guide, what's the one thing that you would tell us we need to see in your area?
the first thing that came into my mind was you have to see and eat at Chris Bianco's Pizzeria. He's from the Bronx. I'm from Bridgeport, Connecticut, so that's about 30 miles out, or a half an hour outside of the Bronx. So there's a certain species of pizza that comes from that area, and Chris Bianco makes a sort of a cousin of that pizza here in Arizona. You were saying what's something I'm so like pizza centric in my life, having grown up where I grew up and being on this crusade or this quest, this odyssey for pizza everywhere I've moved and not being able to find it. And then all of a sudden finding this here in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's like literally a slice of this pizza that I grew up with. So, but let's leave that aside. That just immediately flashed in my mind. I guess the thing that I would show somebody would be our inner city mountain climbing that we have. We have inner city mountains here, as you know, like Piestewa or Squaw Peak, Camelback, South Mountain. We have North Mountain. We have the Papagos. We have all of these inner city, basically tiny mountain ranges, that some of which are a pretty decent height. And, they're like 3-4 hour hikes, some of them. So
yeah, a lot of people don't realize South Mountain Park in Phoenix is the largest by area in the country. It's a massive city park. There's nothing there except scorpions and rattlesnakes, but it
javelinas.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's a lot of desert wildlife. Actually, it really is a neat park.
Yeah. So I guess I like when I first moved out to the desert from Connecticut. I was 19 years old. I came here sight unseen. I was by myself. I was just making a new life alone out here, and I was taken aback by being able to see 50 miles in any direction. You know how it is in Connecticut or on the East Coast. You have rolling hills and you have canopies of green, but you can't see anything unless you're on the, at the shore, So it blew my mind to be able to see like something that is 50 miles away.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's like being on the moon. So that's what I would show a visitor. So that's one of my favorite things, that and Chris Bianco's Pizzeria. And something I dislike about the area, of course, is those 2 months where it's just too hot to do anything.
But everybody expects that answer, so you got to come up with something better.
All right, they would all be contingent on that, like when your phone cuts out in the middle of an interview because it's overheating.
Even in the air conditioning.
Oh, our sports teams are garbage, basically.
Which is a shame. Back when, we had only lived in Phoenix just under 10 years when the D-backs won the World Series, and back then the Suns never quite made it, but they were always in contention. And I don't remember. I don't remember if the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl while we were still there. I think they did. That was the year the Steelers beat them. But
yeah, they can make it there, but then they, can't win a championship, or the Suns at least. I don't even follow sports very well, but I know that our sports are horrible, and I've gotten sucked into the excitement. Like even when I first moved here, it was when Barkley had a good year with our team, and the Lakers beat them. And then I was here of course for this last one with Devin Booker, and how they just blew it. I mean, they even had a 2-game lead in the playoff.
Yeah, they're in that regard, the Suns are just a big tease.
Yeah, exactly.
They get your hopes up and then they crush them mercilessly.
Yeah,
it was always the Spurs.
Crushed.
That back when we were there and watching them, it was always the Spurs that derailed the Suns. A couple times it was the Jazz, but the Spurs just they had our number.
So that's tragic. Our sports scene is tragic. Yeah.
All right. Now I'm going to ask that last question that I warned you about. Do you have any parting words, any final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I forgot to think about this while we were talking, but I think I know what I'd like to say. That that we do have this sort of, we're lucky in the YTPC to have this cultural petri dish, um, to experiment with, in the context of the pipe hobby, to experiment, to do these social experiments, to do VRs or to do yabos or these giveaways, if you call them gauze, I don't know. But, and just the sort of the cultural exchange that we have here, and the fact that there's so much authenticity among like the presenters and lurkers. There just seems to be a lot of just authenticity and a genuine expression of who these, you can readily tell who these people are and kind of what they're about, not in a one-dimensional way. But so that's what I would say is, I would like to see that be fostered and grown and made even stronger and more evident, that these are real, authentic people who can talk about things like grown adults, and don't have to get all bent out of shape, even if they don't agree. And I've seen that happen. It's no big deal, it's no big deal. So that's what I like, and that's what I would like to see kind of grow.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for coming on with me. As always, folks, I'll leave his link down below so you can go right to his channel, give him a sub, check him out. I think you're going to enjoy getting to know Jaime a little bit better. And with that, I'll tell you what I tell you in every video. Like something you like, enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you, Ethan.